Satur, she died during her nap because she ignored this sign. Do not ignore it. Leads to lung collapse. The afternoon sun streamed through the bedroom window as 72-year-old Margaret settled into her favorite armchair for what she thought would be a peaceful nap. Her family found her 3 hours later, her breathing shallow and labored, her lips tinged with blue. By the time the ambulance arrived, her left lung had partially collapsed. The doctors asked her family a single question that would haunt them forever. Had she noticed the warning signs? Had anyone paid attention to what her body had been desperately trying to communicate for weeks? Buddhist philosophy teaches that the body speaks in whispers before it screams. Ancient wisdom traditions have long understood that sudden medical emergencies rarely appear without warning. The body sends signals, subtle messages that something requires attention. But in the modern world, these whispers go unheard. People ignore small discomforts, dismiss minor symptoms, and continue their daily routines until the body has no choice but to force them to listen through crisis. What Margaret's family discovered in the days following her collapse shocked them to their core. The warning sign had been present for nearly 3 weeks. She had mentioned it casually, dismissed it as nothing serious, told her children not to worry. It seemed so insignificant, so common, so easy to ignore. Yet this single symptom, this one sign that Buddhist health wisdom has warned about for centuries, was her body's desperate plea for help, a plea she ignored until it was almost too late. The truth about sudden lung collapse during rest periods terrifies medical professionals because it strikes when people feel most safe, most relaxed, most vulnerable. The statistics reveal a disturbing pattern. Thousands of seniors experience respiratory emergencies during afternoon naps or nighttime sleep, many of whom displayed identical warning signs in the days and weeks before. These signs appear so ordinary, so commonplace, that most people never realize they are witnessing the early stages of a potentially fatal condition. Buddhist monks who have studied the human body's energy systems for centuries identified this pattern long before modern medicine understood the mechanism. They observed that certain subtle symptoms, when appearing together or persisting beyond normal duration, signal dangerous imbalances in the lung meridian and respiratory energy flow. They developed specific practices to recognize these warnings and intervene before catastrophe strikes. This ancient knowledge, combined with modern medical understanding, reveals truths that could save thousands of lives if only people knew what to watch for. Before diving into these life-saving revelations, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. This information could save your life or the life of someone you love. Share it with every senior family member, every friend over 60, every person who takes afternoon naps or experiences any respiratory discomfort. The knowledge shared here represents centuries of Buddhist health wisdom combined with modern medical science, and it deserves the widest possible distribution. Buddhist teachings emphasize that health wisdom serves no purpose if it remains hidden. The greatest tragedy occurs not when people lack knowledge, but when knowledge exists and goes unshared. By engaging with this content, by spreading this message, viewers become part of a chain of protection that extends to countless families who might otherwise suffer the same terror that Margaret's family endured. Comment below with the mantra, "I honor my body's wisdom and heed its warnings." This affirmation creates energetic alignment between conscious awareness and bodily intuition. It programs the mind to pay attention rather than dismiss, to investigate rather than ignore, to act rather than delay. Speaking this mantra, writing these words, commits the spirit to vigilance and self-care. The philosophical foundation for understanding respiratory emergencies during rest periods begins with Buddhist concepts of breath as life force. In Buddhist physiology, breath represents more than simple oxygen exchange. Breath carries prana, chi, vital energy that sustains not only physical existence, but consciousness itself. When breath becomes compromised, When the flow of air encounters obstruction or weakness, the entire energy system suffers. Ancient Buddhist medical texts describe the lungs as delicate lotus flowers that must remain moist, flexible, and clear to function properly. These lotus flowers can become damaged through various mechanisms: accumulated phlegm blocking passages, inflammation causing tissue swelling, weakness in the chest muscles reducing expansion capacity, or structural problems affecting the lung tissue itself. Modern medicine confirms these ancient observations through detailed understanding of conditions like pneumonia, pleurisy, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and spontaneous pneumothorax. The connection between rest periods and respiratory emergencies reveals profound truth about body positioning and lung function. When people lie down to nap or sleep, gravity affects lung capacity differently than during upright activity. Fluid can accumulate in lower lung regions, chest expansion becomes restricted by mattress pressure, breathing naturally becomes shallower during deep sleep stages. For healthy lungs, these changes present no problem. But for lungs already compromised by disease, inflammation, or weakness, the positional shift during rest can trigger sudden collapse or dangerous fluid accumulation. Buddhist health practitioners observed centuries ago that certain individuals became breathless when lying flat, requiring elevated head positioning for comfortable sleep. They recognized this as a danger sign indicating heart or lung weakness requiring immediate intervention. Modern medicine calls this orthopnea and considers it a red flag symptom demanding urgent evaluation. The convergence of ancient wisdom and modern science confirms that the body's inability to breathe comfortably in all positions signals serious underlying problems. The warning sign that Margaret ignored, the symptom that appears so common and harmless, reveals itself as profoundly significant when understood through both Buddhist energy medicine and modern respiratory science. This sign appears in the throat, manifests through sound and sensation, and indicates dangerous changes occurring deep within the chest cavity. The 7 manifestations of this warning sign require immediate recognition and response to prevent catastrophic outcomes. Number 1, the persistent dry cough that changes character. The first warning sign manifests as a cough that refuses to resolve, a dry hacking that persists for weeks beyond any cold or illness. Buddhist medicine describes this as wind element imbalance in the lung meridian, an energetic dryness that prevents proper moisture balance in the respiratory passages. Modern medicine identifies this as potential chronic inflammation, early infection, or mechanical irritation from structural lung problems. The cough typically begins mild and occasional, easy to dismiss as seasonal allergies or minor irritation. People clear their throat repeatedly throughout the day, experience tickling sensations that trigger coughing fits, and notice the cough intensifies when lying down or after meals. The character of this cough differs from normal illness-related coughing. It sounds dry, forceful, almost desperate, as though the body fights to clear something that cannot be cleared through coughing alone. Buddhist practitioners recognize this persistent cough as the body's attempt to expel pathogenic energy that has invaded the lung system. From the energetic perspective, the cough represents the lung organ's defensive response to foreign invasion or internal stagnation. The dry quality indicates insufficient moisture to protect and cleanse the airways, while the persistence reveals that the root cause remains unaddressed despite the body's repeated efforts. Modern medical understanding confirms that chronic dry cough, especially when lasting beyond 3 weeks, can indicate serious conditions including early pneumonia, pleurisy, pulmonary embolism, or spontaneous pneumothorax development. The cough serves as the body's alarm system, the first warning that something within the chest cavity requires medical attention. Ignoring this warning allows underlying conditions to progress from manageable to dangerous. The shadow side of this warning sign lies in its commonality and seeming insignificance. Millions of people experience occasional dry cough without serious consequences. This normalcy creates dangerous complacency. People assume any cough will eventually resolve on its own, fail to track how long symptoms persist, and miss the critical window for early intervention. The distinction between harmless throat irritation and dangerous warning sign depends entirely on persistence, character change, and associated symptoms. Integration wisdom demands careful attention to cough patterns. Buddhist practice recommends keeping a simple symptom journal, noting when coughs occur, what triggers them, how they sound, and how long they persist. If any cough continues beyond 2 weeks despite home remedies, medical evaluation becomes essential. If the cough changes character, becoming more forceful, more frequent, or producing different sounds, immediate medical consultation becomes urgent. The body speaks clearly through persistent cough. Wisdom lies in listening before the whisper becomes a scream. Number 2, the subtle shortness of breath that appears during minor activities. The second warning manifests as breathlessness during activities that previously caused no difficulty. Buddhist medicine describes this as qi deficiency in the lung system, an energetic weakness that prevents proper breath circulation. Modern medicine identifies this as reduced lung capacity due to fluid accumulation, tissue damage, or obstruction of airways. This breathlessness appears gradually and insidiously. People notice they become slightly winded climbing stairs they previously managed easily. They pause to catch their breath after walking from the car to the front door. They feel the need to sit down after light household chores like making the bed or washing dishes. The sensation differs from normal tiredness or age-related decline. It feels specific to breathing, as though the lungs cannot quite get enough air despite normal breathing rate. Buddhist health wisdom teaches that the breath should flow effortlessly during all activities of daily living. When breath becomes labored during simple tasks, when people notice their breathing during activities that should require no conscious attention to respiration, the lung system signals serious imbalance. This symptom indicates that lung capacity has declined to the point where reserve capacity no longer exists for modest physical demands. The medical significance of exertional dyspnea, as doctors call this symptom, cannot be overstated. This symptom can indicate heart failure, chronic lung disease, pulmonary hypertension, or developing pneumonia. In the context of potential lung collapse, progressive shortness of breath suggests that lung tissue has already begun failing, that capacity has diminished to dangerous levels, and that any additional stress could trigger complete collapse. People experiencing this symptom often rationalize and dismiss it. They attribute breathlessness to age, weight gain, being out of shape, or temporary fatigue. They avoid activities that trigger symptoms rather than seeking medical evaluation. They accommodate the limitation rather than investigating its cause. This adaptation response, while psychologically protective, proves medically catastrophic. The longer underlying lung compromise continues unaddressed, the greater the risk of sudden severe complications. Buddhist teaching emphasizes that the body adapts until it can adapt no more, then breaks suddenly and completely. This principle applies perfectly to progressive lung disease. The body compensates for declining lung function through multiple mechanisms: breathing faster, working harder, limiting activity. These compensations mask the severity of underlying problems until a critical threshold arrives where no further compensation remains possible. At that point, minor additional stress triggers rapid decline. Integration practice requires honest self-assessment regarding breathing capacity. Buddhist mindfulness meditation applied to respiratory awareness creates perfect tool for early detection. Spending 5 minutes daily in quiet seated meditation, simply observing the breath without trying to control it, reveals subtle changes in breathing patterns. Notice if breath becomes shallow, rapid, or labored during rest. Notice if certain activities now trigger breathlessness that didn't previously. Notice any sensation of not getting quite enough air despite normal breathing. If shortness of breath appears during activities previously performed without difficulty, medical evaluation becomes mandatory. If breathlessness occurs during rest or very light activity, emergency medical attention becomes urgent. The lungs communicate their compromised state through breath difficulty. Wisdom requires acknowledging this communication and acting appropriately before catastrophe strikes. Number 3, the sharp chest pain that comes and goes. The third warning presents as intermittent sharp chest pain, often dismissed as muscle strain or harmless discomfort. Buddhist medicine describes this as blockage in the chest meridians, an energetic obstruction that prevents smooth flow of qi through the heart and lung regions. Modern medicine recognizes this as potential pleuritic pain, indicating inflammation or damage to the pleural lining surrounding the lungs. This pain manifests differently from the crushing chest pressure associated with heart attacks. Instead, it feels sharp, stabbing, localized to specific areas of the chest. The pain intensifies with deep breathing, coughing, or certain movements. It may last for seconds or minutes, then disappear completely, only to return hours or days later. The intermittent nature creates false reassurance, leading people to conclude the pain cannot be serious if it comes and goes. Buddhist understanding recognizes that intermittent symptoms often indicate underlying chronic problems that temporarily worsen then stabilize. From the energetic perspective, pain that comes and goes reveals fluctuating blockages or temporary inflammations that haven't yet progressed to constant crisis. This intermittent quality represents a warning period, a window of opportunity for intervention before the condition becomes continuous and severe. Medical science confirms that pleuritic chest pain, characterized by sharp quality and intensification with breathing, indicates problems with the pleural lining or lung tissue itself. Conditions causing this symptom include pleurisy, pneumonia, pulmonary embolism, and most critically developing pneumothorax. When the pleural space becomes irritated or when air begins accumulating between lung and chest wall, the result produces exactly this type of intermittent sharp pain. The danger of this symptom lies in its dismissibility. People attribute chest pain to dozens of harmless causes: pulled muscles, heartburn, anxiety, sleeping wrong. They take pain relievers and ignore the symptom unless it becomes constant and severe. This dismissal proves potentially fatal because intermittent chest pain related to lung problems typically worsens progressively. What begins as occasional stabbing sensations can rapidly progress to constant severe pain accompanying complete lung collapse. Buddhist medical wisdom teaches that all pain serves as teacher, as messenger delivering information about internal conditions requiring attention. Ignoring pain equals ignoring the body's primary communication system. When pain appears in the chest, when it intensifies with breathing, when it returns repeatedly despite rest and home treatment, the body speaks with crystal clarity. Something in the chest cavity requires medical investigation. Integration approach requires taking chest pain seriously, regardless of how minor or intermittent it seems. Buddhist practice recommends sitting with the pain during meditation, observing its quality, location, and behavior without judgment, but with full attention. This mindful observation often reveals patterns invisible during distracted daily activity. If the pain intensifies with deep breathing or coughing, if it returns repeatedly over several days, if it accompanies any other respiratory symptoms, immediate medical consultation becomes essential. The body does not produce pain unnecessarily. Every pain signal indicates tissue damage, inflammation, or dysfunction requiring response. Chest pain that comes and goes represents the body's moderate alarm, the warning before the crisis. Wisdom lies in responding to moderate alarms before they escalate to emergency sirens. Number 4, the unexplained fatigue that sleep doesn't improve. The fourth manifestation appears as profound fatigue that persists despite adequate rest. Buddhist medicine describes this as severe qi deficiency affecting multiple organ systems with particular impact on lung and spleen energetics. Modern medicine identifies this as potential hypoxia, reduced oxygen delivery to tissues resulting from compromised lung function. This fatigue differs qualitatively from normal tiredness. People feel exhausted from the moment they wake, as though they never slept at all. Simple activities require enormous effort. Concentration becomes difficult. Mental clarity diminishes. The exhaustion feels heavy, physical, rooted in the body rather than merely psychological. Most significantly, rest provides no relief. Naps leave people feeling equally drained. Full nights of sleep produce no restoration. Buddhist health philosophy teaches that sleep should restore and rejuvenate. When sleep fails to refresh, when the body remains perpetually exhausted despite ample rest, serious energy depletion exists. From the traditional medicine perspective, this indicates that foundational qi has become severely compromised, that the body lacks sufficient vital force to perform basic functions, let alone repair and restore during rest periods. The medical explanation for this symptom reveals its dangerous significance. When lungs cannot adequately oxygenate blood, every cell in the body receives insufficient oxygen for optimal function. The brain becomes foggy from hypoxia. Muscles feel weak from inadequate oxygen delivery. Overall energy plummets because cellular metabolism requires oxygen to generate energy. This systemic oxygen deprivation produces profound, unshakable fatigue that no amount of rest can remedy, because the problem lies not in inadequate rest, but in inadequate oxygenation. People experiencing this crushing fatigue typically attribute it to age, stress, poor sleep quality, or psychological depression. They may seek stimulants like caffeine, attempt to force themselves through the exhaustion, or simply accept fatigue as their new normal. This acceptance proves catastrophic when the underlying cause involves progressive lung disease or developing respiratory failure. The fatigue represents the body's desperate communication that vital systems cannot function properly due to oxygen insufficiency. Shadow aspects of this warning include its gradual onset and universal attribution to benign causes. Because fatigue develops slowly over weeks or months, people adapt incrementally without recognizing the severity of their decline. They remember when they had energy but rationalize its loss through dozens of explanations that avoid confronting potential serious illness. This psychological defense mechanism, while understandable, prevents the urgent medical intervention required to address life-threatening lung compromise. Buddhist teaching emphasizes living with awareness, not denial. When the body signals exhaustion that rest cannot remedy, awareness demands investigation of underlying causes rather than acceptance of decline as inevitable. Energy represents life force itself. Severe energy depletion indicates serious imbalance requiring correction. Integration wisdom requires distinguishing normal age-related energy decline from pathological fatigue. Buddhist self-assessment practices recommend tracking energy levels throughout the day, noting patterns and triggers. Normal fatigue responds to rest, improves after sleep, varies with activity levels. Pathological fatigue persists constantly, fails to improve with rest, exists independent of activity. If fatigue falls into the pathological category, if exhaustion prevents normal daily functioning, if rest provides no restoration, immediate medical evaluation becomes mandatory. The lungs may be failing to provide adequate oxygen, a condition that progresses from uncomfortable to fatal unless addressed promptly. Number 5. The rapid heartbeat, occurring during rest. The fifth warning manifests as unexplained heart racing during periods of rest. Buddhist medicine describes this as heart-lung disharmony, an imbalance between two vital organs that should work in coordinated rhythm. Modern medicine recognizes this as potential compensatory tachycardia, the heart working harder to circulate poorly oxygenated blood resulting from compromised lung function. This symptom appears as awareness of heartbeat during rest, when normally the heart beats quietly in the background of consciousness. People feel their heart pounding while sitting calmly, notice rapid pulse when lying in bed, or experience sudden heart racing without physical exertion or emotional upset. The sensation can feel disturbing, even frightening, creating anxiety that further accelerates heart rate. Buddhist physiology teaches that heart and lungs must function in perfect harmony, their rhythms synchronized like dancers moving to shared music. When lungs fail to properly oxygenate blood, the heart compensates by beating faster, attempting to circulate more blood to deliver adequate oxygen despite reduced oxygen content per unit of blood. This compensation strategy works temporarily but eventually exhausts both organs. The medical significance of resting tachycardia in the context of respiratory symptoms cannot be understated. When the heart races during rest, particularly in individuals experiencing other lung-related symptoms, the body signals that oxygen delivery has become critically compromised. The heart's desperate acceleration represents a last-ditch effort to maintain tissue oxygenation despite failing lungs. This compensation indicates that the body has moved beyond early warning into active crisis response. Many people experiencing this symptom attribute it to anxiety, stress, caffeine consumption, or harmless heart palpitations. They may monitor their heart rate obsessively, worrying about cardiac problems while completely missing the respiratory origin of their symptoms. This misattribution delays appropriate investigation and treatment of underlying lung disease. The Buddhist perspective emphasizes that symptoms never occur in isolation. Heart racing accompanied by any other symptoms discussed here, persistent cough, shortness of breath, chest pain, fatigue, creates a syndrome pattern demanding immediate attention. Traditional medicine teaches that organ systems communicate and affect one another. Heart symptoms in the presence of lung symptoms indicate serious heart-lung axis disruption requiring urgent intervention. Integration practice requires awareness of heart rate patterns and recognition of abnormal presentations. Buddhist meditation naturally increases heart rate awareness, making practitioners more attuned to subtle changes. If the heart races during meditation, during rest, or during very light activity, and if this racing accompanies any respiratory symptoms whatsoever, emergency medical consultation becomes necessary. The heart tells the truth about oxygen delivery status. When it races during rest, it screams that the lungs are failing their primary function. Number 6, the skin color changes that others notice. The sixth warning appears as subtle changes in skin coloration, particularly visible in lips, fingernails, and facial complexion. Buddhist medicine describes this as blood qi deficiency, inadequate oxygenation of blood affecting its color and vitality.